90 floors up, you're looking out over the city, just a million lights, this constant buzz. But imagine feeling completely alone up there.
Yeah.
How can being so high up feel like you're, well, down in the depths?
Mm.
That's the paradox we're really getting into today on the deep dive. We're turning to our source to explore the story and the impact of Cole Porter's 1936 torch song, Down in the Depths on the 90th Floor.
And it's a fascinating where it actually came from. Our source points out it wasn't just like a standalone single. It was written for the musical Red Hot and Blue.
Right.
And that show apparently had a bit of a bumpy start. It went through some changes. But this song, even within all that, kind of emerged as this really powerful emotional moment. It stood out.
Definitely. And we're talking Cole Porter here. I mean, he was already known for being incredibly sophisticated, so witty.
Oh, absolutely. A master lyricist.
So for him, this established figure to write something so melancholic, especially in 1936 America, it's quite striking.
Yeah, think about the timing, the Depression, a really tough time for so many people. And then you have this song describing this incredible opulence.
It makes that contrast even sharper, doesn't it?
It really does. And if you look at the bigger picture, like our source encourages, there's this interesting duality. Entertainment back then was often pure escape. Broadway helped with that. But a song like Down in the Depths, it didn't shy away from those deeper, more introspective feelings, even surrounded by glamour. So why should you care about this deep dive? Well, by the end, you'll really get how a seemingly simple song can hold so much complexity, feelings, social commentary, and you'll see why it still hits home today.
Okay, so let's talk about how it actually came about. Our source tells us it had a very specific job to do in Red Hot and Blue. Ethel Merman's character nails O'Reilly Duquesne. He's this big, wealthy personality.
Larger than life, yeah. But the song, our source explains, was like this peek behind the curtain. It showed this hidden vulnerability, something beneath that sort of brassy exterior she was known for.
That makes you think about Porter himself, doesn't it? Our source kind of nudges us there. His own life had, well, complexities.
Right. He was gay, quite openly in his close circles, but he was married. That contrast, public versus private, it seems likely it seeped into his writing.
You can sort of see how a song about hidden emotions, feeling isolated, even when you're supposedly on top of the world, how that might resonate with him personally.
Exactly. It's not a huge leap to make.
And that leads us right into what our source really highlights as the core genius here, the inverted metaphor.
Yes.
Usually up is good, right? Success, happiness, down is bad. But Porter just flips it completely.
He does. Being physically high up, the 95th floor no less, it's not about winning here. It's about this hollow success that actually masks this deep emotional loneliness.
It's fascinating, isn't it? Our source points out how that height becomes almost like a wall.
Yeah, instead of a vantage point.
Yeah.
The glittering city lights, which you'd think would represent connection, just emphasize the detachment.
And it's not just feeling separate from others, is it? It's like feeling alienated from yourself, too. That gap between the glamorous life and the inner emptiness.
Precisely. A profound disconnect.
So to really get the song, our source says we need to understand its category. It's a torch song. Okay, so for anyone listening who isn't sure, what exactly makes a song a torch song?
Well, our source lays it out pretty clearly. Typically, you're looking at mournful lyrics, a slow tempo, very deliberate, and the focus is almost always on lost love, or maybe love that isn't returned.
Holding a torch for someone.
Exactly. They're often showcases for a singer to really pour out emotion.
And Down in the Depths definitely has that ache, that longing. But like our source notes, it does more than just the lost romance thing. It adds this layer about loneliness within luxury, which feels different.
It is different. And the fact that Ethel Merman sang it originally, which our source really emphasizes, that's crucial.
Yeah, Merman by 36, she was huge. That powerful voice, that, well, brassy persona.
Unmistakable. You knew when Merman was on stage.
So how did Porter write this song, this kind of quiet heartbreak, for her, someone known for belting it out?
This is where it gets really interesting, and our source sheds light on this. Porter specifically wrote it to show another side of her, a more vulnerable, introspective Merman.
So it was intentional.
Completely. Think about the setup, this grand penthouse setting, high above everything, but the lyrics are full of this quiet despair. That contrast is built right in.
Our source even mentions the staging, just a single gold spotlight on her, wearing this fancy lame gown.
Yeah, that visual just hammers home the theme, doesn't it? Dazzling surface, empty inside. And Porter knew Mermaid could pull it off.
He praised her enunciation, right? Our source quotes him.
Yes, he says the finest he knew among American singers. And for this song, where every word counts, that clarity was absolutely essential. I let her show this subtlety maybe people didn't expect from her. It became a standout moment for her in that show.
Okay, let's really dig into Porter's lyrics now, like our source encourages. That opening. Million neon rainbows burning below me, and a million blazing taxis raising a roar. Wow, what hits you there?
Well, neon rainbows, our source calls that an oxymoron, right? Rainbows are natural, hopeful, but these are artificial, neon. It suggests this beauty that isn't quite real, maybe.
A bit hollow.
Yeah. And then the blazing taxis raising a roar, that sound, that urban chaos, the internal rhyme blazing and raising, it gives it this restless energy. But she's above it all, separate.
Then she sings, "Here I sit above the town in my pet-paired evening gown." Pet-paired. That's such a Porter touch, isn't it? Our source calls it a Porterism.
It really is. So precise, almost fussy. Suggests all this effort put into appearance, but she's just sitting there alone.
Dressed up with nowhere to go, essentially. Or no one to be with.
Exactly. And then that specific detail, our source points out, up in my penthouse, high on the 95th floor, not just high, but 95th, it really nails that sense of extreme isolation, physically and emotionally.
And he drops in these real places, doesn't he? While the crowds at El Morocco punish the parquet, and at 21 the couples clamor for more, our source explains these were the hot spots.
Oh, yeah, the places to be seen. Punish the parquet. What a great line for dancing.
It is.
And picturing couples having fun at these famous clubs just makes her solitude feel even more intense. She's observing it all from afar, completely shut out.
And that image. I'm deserted and depressed in my regal eagle nest. Our source loves regal eagle nest.
It's brilliant. Regal suggests majesty, power. But nest and eagle, solitary creatures, high up, alone. The alliteration makes it stick, too.
It perfectly captures that paradox. Our source keeps mentioning high status, but utterly lonely.
Right. And then, of course, the refrain itself. Down in the depths on the 90th floor, that's the core irony, the contradiction that powers the whole song, as our source underlines.
So clever. How can you be down when you're physically so high? It forces you to think about that disconnect between place and feeling.
Exactly. And then she cuts right to it. When the only one you wanted wants another.
Oof. That's just raw universal heartbreak, isn't it? Our source points out how direct that is.
It is. After all the clever imagery, it hits you with this plain, painful truth. No wordplay there, just pure feeling. Which leads her to ask, what's the use of swank and cash in the bank galore?
Yeah, that line feels almost bitter. Our source suggests it just dismisses all the wealth because it can't buy the one thing she wants: connection, love.
And the language there, swank, cash galore, it feels more grounded, more colloquial, as our source notes. Makes it very relatable, despite the penthouse setting.
And then that contrast our source flags. Why, even the janitor's wife has a perfectly good love life.
Wow. Yeah, that's stark. It's not about money, is it? It's about basic human connection. The idea that someone less privileged has what she lacks. Yeah. It's a real punch.
And she ends the verses with that classic Torch song line our source mentions, "Alone with my sorrow." Simple, direct, no escape.
So true. Okay, should we shift to the music itself? Our source gives us some good stuff here.
Yeah, let's do it. Structure-wise, it's that classic AABA form, right? 32 bars. Very common then.
Very common, yes. But as our source points out, Porter uses that familiar structure in really smart ways. It might sound technical, AABA, but just think of it like a standard song chase he builds upon.
And the melody, our source mentions how in the A parts, it kind of goes up, suggesting confidence maybe, but then it comes back down, like musically deflating her.
It's a neat trick, isn't it? Reflecting that inner conflict right there in the notes. And then in the bridge, the B section, our source notes gets more chromatic, uses notes outside the main key. That creates this feeling of unease, instability.
Like something's not quite right.
Exactly. It reflects that turmoil she's feeling, the unresolved emotion. You can almost hear the unsettled feeling.
And the harmony. Our source talks about a rich sound, key changes, minor sevenths, diminished chords. What's the effect of all that?
Well, according to our source, those choices create tension, ambiguity. The music doesn't feel fully resolved, kind of like her emotional state, adrift, unhappy. It adds this whole other layer of complexity under the tune.
And the rhythm. Our source says it's unhurried, phrases are stretched out, syncopation used carefully.
Right. That slower tempo lets the singer really live in the lyrics, hit those emotional points.
Yeah.
And syncopation, those offbeat rhythms, our source suggests they're used sparingly. maybe to emphasize an ironic word or a particularly painful thought, making it stand out.
And the instruments are kept pretty simple. Piano, drums, muted brass. Our source mentions it's understated.
Yeah, and that's key. Our source emphasizes its minimalism. It keeps the focus right on the voice and the story and the lyrics. The music supports, it doesn't overwhelm.
So let's think about the impact. Our source brings this up. It came out during the Depression. People wanted escapism, right? How did a song this introspective actually land?
That's a great question. While, yeah, a lot of entertainment was about forgetting your troubles, our source suggests Down in the Depths offered something else. It kind of validated those individual feelings of despair, even amid hardship. It hinted that money didn't automatically equal happiness.
That even the rich could be miserable.
Pretty much. And our source brings up something really interesting later on, its connection to the play, The Boys in the Band. It gets called the gay national anthem in the play.
Wow, that's a heavy title.
It is.
Yeah.
And our source suggests it's because those themes of hidden pain, putting on a happy face, really resonated deeply within the LGBTQ plus community, especially at that time. That feeling of having to perform, the gap between how you appear and how you feel, the song captured that.
And so many different singers have taken it on since. Our source mentions Ella Fitzgerald, Lisa Stansfield, Tony Bennett.
Yeah, and each one brings something different, don't they? Our source implies Fitzgerald gives it that cool sophistication, Stansfield maybe a more modern soul vibe, Bennett that classic reverence. It shows the song works across styles and generations.
And it still pops up in cabaret, drag shows.
Yeah.
Our source notes that connection to themes of invisibility or estrangement is still strong.
Absolutely. It keeps finding new relevance. Its legacy, as our source really drives home, is huge.
Yeah.
It's rightly considered one of Porter's absolute best torch songs, up there with his other classics. It's a standard.
And it gets academic respect too, right? For the wordplay, the harmony. Our source mentions that it wasn't just popular, it was good.
Extremely well crafted.
Yeah.
And our source suggests it was maybe a bit of a risk for Porter.
Hmm.
He was the wit master, right?
Yeah.
To go this deep, this vulnerable, that artistic choice is part of why it lasts.
Bringing it to today, like our source does, that feeling of being obsessed with appearances, with achievement, but still feeling alone, that feels incredibly relevant now, doesn't it?
Oh, totally. With social media, curated lives,
Mm-hmm.
that disconnect is maybe more common than ever. It's timeless, that core irony of being isolated despite success. And as our source sums up, the best bits, the clever lyrics, the flipped metaphor, that emotional punch in the bridge, they all make it work. It just taps into a fundamental human need for real connection.
Our source also revisits those quotes, Porter on Merman's diction, Crowley calling it the gay national anthem, Hajdu on its boldness.
Yeah.
They really add weight, don't they?
They do. Hearing from the composer, a cultural commentator, a historian, our source uses those perspectives to really underline the song's different layers and its lasting importance.
So wrapping up our deep dive from our source today, we've journeyed through the creation of Down in the Depths, the lyrics, the music, Merman's iconic performance, and its cultural echoes over time.
And the big takeaway, really, as our source makes clear, is that it's so much more than just a sad song. It's this really insightful look at how complex our emotions are, especially when stacked against society's ideas about success and wealth.
So maybe a final thought for you listening. Where's the 90th floor in your own life? Is there a place where how things look on the outside doesn't quite match the inside? What's a modern penthouse that might create that same feeling of being isolated despite seeming connection?
It's definitely something to think about, a reminder that our inner world doesn't always line up with our outer circumstances. Maybe listen to Down in the Depths again with all this in mind. You might hear even more in Porter's amazing storytelling.